The flash of 100 phone cameras hit me like a slap the second Jake stepped onto the makeshift stage at our college graduation party and told the entire crowd he was done with me. "Madison just isn't the future I see anymore," he said loud enough for my parents standing 10 feet away to hear every syllable. My cheeks burned while laughter rippled through the crowd and I stood frozen in the ridiculous red dress I had picked because he once said it made me look unstoppable. 6 years later I pulled the same car onto the gravel driveway of my childhood home with Alexandra's hand resting lightly on my knee, and the same red dress folded neatly in the backseat like a dare. The moment our tires crunched to a stop, every face on the lawn turned. My mother's mouth actually fell open. My father's beer bottle paused halfway to his lips. And Jake, yes, the same Jake now married with 2 kids, stood beside my brother with his arm around a woman who wasn't me. Alexandra squeezed my fingers once. "Ready?" she whispered. I wasn't. But I stepped out anyway because running was no longer an option. Inside the house the air smelled exactly like Thanksgiving and regret. My mother recovered first, wrapping me in a hug that felt more like inspection. "Sweetheart, you look different." Her eyes flicked to Alexandra, who waited politely by the door in tailored slacks and a silk blouse that somehow made her look both professional and untouchable. "And who is this?" Mom asked the question everyone wanted answered. I took a breath that tasted like every secret I had swallowed for years. "This is Alexandra. My partner." The word landed like a stone in still water. Silence spread outward until my brother coughed and muttered something about getting more ice. Jake's new wife stared at the floor, suddenly fascinated by the pattern on the rug. I felt the old shame crawl up my spine, but this time it met something steelier. 6 years of therapy, late-night talks with Alexandra, and the slow, unshakable decision that I would never shrink again. Alexandra smiled, the calm professional smile she used in boardrooms. "It's lovely to meet you all. Madison has told me so much." The lie was gentle, but the room knew it wasn't the whole truth. My father set his beer down harder than necessary. "Partner. Like business." I met his eyes. "Like life." The first crack in the evening had appeared, and we had only been here 5 minutes. Later in the kitchen, while Alexandra helped my mother slice pie, I stood alone on the back porch replaying the graduation night in my head. Jake had not just left me, he had made sure everyone saw my humiliation so no one would pity me too loudly. I had driven home that night crying so hard I almost missed the exit and spent the next 3 months in my childhood bedroom, eating cereal at 2 a.m. wondering what was so wrong with me that even the boy who once promised forever couldn't stay. Then one rainy Tuesday I walked into a coffee shop near my new apartment in Chicago and met Alexandra. She was arguing with a barista about oat milk in the kindest possible voice, and when she turned to apologize for holding up the line, our eyes locked. She was 29, already a rising corporate attorney, and I was 23, still bruised. We talked for 3 hours that first day about everything except romance. It took another 6 months of friendship before I admitted the feeling in my chest wasn't just admiration. The night I finally said it out loud, I cried again, but these tears felt clean. Alexandra had simply taken my hands and said, "I've been waiting for you to be ready." Back on the porch 6 years later, I heard the screen door open. Jake stepped out, lighting a cigarette. He swore he had quit. "So that's her, huh?" His voice carried the same cocky tilt it always had. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I watched Alexandra through the window, laughing politely at something my aunt said, and something fierce and protective bloomed in my chest. "Yeah, Jake. That's her." He exhaled smoke toward the stars. "Your dad's gonna lose his mind." I smiled for the first time since we arrived. He already did. And I'm still standing. The conversation ended there, but the real storm was only beginning. By midnight, the family had rearranged itself into careful clusters. The men hovered around the grill, pretending the temperature outside was the only thing worth discussing, while the women circled the kitchen island like cautious birds. Alexandra moved among them with the ease of someone who had negotiated multimillion-dollar contracts, and she answered every awkward question without flinching. When my cousin asked how we made it work, Alexandra simply said, "The same way any couple does, honesty and compromise." The word couple hung in the air like incense. My mother kept refilling glasses too quickly, her smile brittle. I caught her staring at us when she thought no one noticed, and the look on her face was pure confusion mixed with something sharper. Later she cornered me in the hallway. "Madison, honey, are you sure this isn't just a phase? After what Jake did, I understand wanting to try something different." The words landed exactly where she meant them to. I felt the old wound reopen, but I had practiced this moment in front of mirrors for years. Mom, this isn't about Jake. This is about me. And it's not a phase. She reached for my arm then stopped. Your father hasn't said much, but I can see it's killing him. The church ladies already called twice asking if the rumors are true. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Then tell them the rumors are true. I'm in love with the woman and I'm happier than I've ever been. She looked away, tears glistening. I just want you safe. Happy. Respected. The last word cracked. I almost told her that respect was exactly what I had come home to claim, but the front door slammed and my brother's voice boomed through the house. Jake's leaving already? Party just started. Jake appeared in the foyer, keys in hand, his wife trailing behind. He caught my eye and for a second the old guilt flickered across his face. Take care, Mads. The nickname he hadn't used in years felt like a goodbye and a challenge at once. When the door closed behind them, Alexandra found me on the porch again. She didn't speak, just leaned against the railing until our shoulders touched. They're processing, she said quietly. Some faster than others. I laughed once, a short bitter sound. Processing. That's polite. She turned to face me, the porch light catching the gold flecks in her eyes. You don't owe them explanations, Madison. But you do owe yourself the truth out loud. I nodded, knowing she was right, yet feeling the weight of every childhood memory pressing down. Inside the house, my father had started playing old country music like he could drown out the new reality with guitars and steel. The night stretched on and I realized the real conversations were only beginning. The next morning, sunlight poured through the lace curtains of my old bedroom, and for a moment I forgot where I was. Then Alexandra's arm draped across my waist and everything rushed back. Downstairs, the smell of coffee and tension filled the kitchen. My father sat at the head of the table reading the newspaper with unusual focus, while my mother flipped pancakes like each one was a peace offering. Alexandra and I joined them, and the silence was so thick you could spread it on toast. Finally, my father lowered the paper. So, Alexandra, what is it you do exactly? The question sounded innocent, but we both heard the real one underneath. Alexandra set her fork down. I'm senior counsel at Harlan & Associates. We specialize in corporate litigation. My father's eyebrows rose a fraction. Lawyer. Impressive. He didn't say the rest, that she was also the woman sleeping with his daughter, but the implication hovered. My mother tried to steer the talk toward neutral ground, asking about Chicago weather and traffic, until my brother wandered in, still in pajamas. Heard you two are staying through the reunion tomorrow, he said around a mouthful of pancake. Whole town's gonna be there. Should be fun. The word fun dripped sarcasm. I met his gaze. We're not hiding, Ryan. If people have questions, they can ask. He snorted. You always did like making scenes. The jab landed, but I refused to flinch. Alexandra's hand found mine under the table, and the small pressure grounded me. After breakfast, we escaped to the backyard where the old swing set still creaked in the breeze. Sitting side by side, I told her the story I had never fully shared. The night after the breakup, when my mother had cried and said maybe I just needed to meet a nicer boy, and my father had gone quiet for weeks. Alexandra listened without interrupting, then spoke softly. You survived that. You'll survive this. But I wasn't so sure. Because later that afternoon my aunt arrived with a casserole, and the news that the church prayer chain had been activated. They're praying for clarity, she said, patting my shoulder like I had a terminal illness. Alexandra's jaw tightened. The first crack in her composure I had seen. That evening we took a walk around the block, and I asked her the question I had been carrying since we left Chicago. Are you sure you want this? My family, my past, all of it. She stopped under a street lamp. Madison, I chose you the day you finally chose yourself. The rest is just scenery. Her words should have comforted me, but instead they lit a new fear. What if my scenery cost her everything she had worked for? Back at the house, my mother had set up the guest room with 2 separate beds. Neither of us commented. We simply pushed them together and held each other until the house grew quiet. Sleep came slowly, and when it did, I dreamed of graduation night again, only this time Alexandra stood beside me on the stage and the crowd was forced to clap. Reunion day arrived, wrapped in the kind of perfect blue sky that made lies feel harder to maintain. The park pavilion buzzed with former classmates and distant relatives, all pretending they hadn't heard the news. Alexandra wore a simple white sundress that made her look like summer itself, and I chose the red dress after all. Heads turned the second we stepped onto the grass. Old friends offered tight smiles and quick hugs while their eyes darted between us. Jake and his wife were already there holding court near the beer cooler. When he saw us, he raised his cup in a mock toast, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. My brother appeared at my elbow. "You really gonna do this here?" I nodded. "Already doing it, Ryan." Alexandra stayed close but never clung, and I watched her navigate conversations with the same grace she used in court. At one point, a former teacher pulled me aside. "I always wondered about you, Madison. You were so quiet after Jake. Glad you found your voice." The kindness surprised me, and for the first time that day I felt something close to pride. Then the music started and couples moved to the makeshift dance floor. Alexandra held out her hand. "May I?" We danced slowly while the world watched, and for 3 minutes the whispers didn't matter. When the song ended, my father appeared at the edge of the crowd. His face was unreadable. "Madison." A word. I followed him to the edge of the pavilion. "Your mother's in tears in the bathroom. Says she doesn't know how to explain this to the ladies at Bridge Club." His voice was low, but the anger underneath vibrated. "I raised you in a good Christian home. This isn't what we taught." I felt every Sunday sermon rise in my throat, but I kept my tone steady. "You taught me to be honest, Dad." "I'm being honest." He looked away toward the horizon. "Honest is one thing. Parading it is another." The word parading stung, but I refused to let it show. When I returned, Alexandra was waiting, her expression soft with understanding. "He'll come around or he won't," she said simply. "Either way, you're not alone." The afternoon wore on, and small rebellions happened in quiet corners. My cousin's teenage daughter asked Alexandra for advice on applying to law school. An old neighbor congratulated us on finding each other. Each tiny acceptance felt like a victory, yet every glance from my parents reminded me the war was far from over. By sunset, the tension had coiled so tight I could barely breathe. That was when Jake approached again. "Can we talk?" "Alone." Alexandra gave me a single nod, and I followed him to the edge of the trees. "I messed up that night, Mats. Big time. But seeing you now happy, it's messing with my head." His confession landed like a tired apology. I waited for the old pain to surge, but it didn't. Instead, I felt only pity. "Jake, I forgave you years ago. I had to so I could become this version of me." He looked genuinely surprised. When I walked back to Alexandra, the sun was dipping low and the first fireflies appeared. She slipped her arm around my waist. "You okay?" I leaned into her. Better than okay. But inside I knew the hardest conversation still waited at home. The drive back from the reunion was quiet until my mother's text lit up my phone. "We need to talk. All of us. Tonight." Alexandra read it over my shoulder, and her hand found mine on the gear shift. "Whatever happens, we face it together." At the house, the living room felt smaller than I remembered. My parents sat on the couch, my brother leaned against the wall, and my aunt had mysteriously appeared with another casserole, like food could fix theology. My father spoke first. "We love you, Madison. Always have. But this lifestyle, it goes against everything we believe." The word lifestyle made my stomach turn. I opened my mouth to answer, but Alexandra spoke instead, her voice calm and measured. "Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, I respect your beliefs. But I also respect your daughter enough to stand beside her while she lives her truth." My mother twisted her hands. "We're not saying we don't want you here. We just need time." Time. The word echoed like a door closing slowly. My brother shifted uncomfortably. "This is tearing the family apart. Cousins are already asking questions." Jake's wife posted something cryptic on Facebook. The betrayal hit harder than I expected. I had come home to claim respect, not to watch my family fracture further. Tears pricked my eyes, but I blinked them back. "I didn't choose this to hurt you. I chose it because hiding almost killed me once. I won't do it again." The room stayed silent until my father stood. "Then maybe you should go back to Chicago. Think things over." The suggestion landed like a physical blow. Alexandra's fingers tightened on mine. "We'll leave in the morning," she said quietly. "But Madison isn't thinking anything over. She's already decided." Upstairs we packed in silence. I folded the red dress one last time. and placed it in my suitcase like burying an old version of myself. That night we lay in the pushed-together beds listening to the house creak. "I'm sorry," I whispered. Alexandra turned to face me. "Never apologize for being who you are. That's the one thing they can't take." Her words wrapped around me, but sleep still refused to come. At 3 a.m., I slipped downstairs for water and found my mother sitting at the kitchen table with a photo album, open to pictures of me at prom with Jake. She didn't look up. "I keep thinking if I had done something different," her voice broke. I sat across from her. "Mom, you didn't do anything wrong. I just turned out different than the plan." She reached across the table, and for the first time in 6 years her hand covered mine without hesitation. "I'm scared for you. The world is cruel." I nodded. "It is. But Alexandra makes it less cruel. And I make it less cruel for her." She cried, then real quiet tears that shook her shoulders. I held her until the sky began to lighten. When I returned to bed, Alexandra was awake. "Everything okay?" I crawled in beside her. "Not okay. But maybe starting to heal." Morning came too soon. My father stood on the porch as we loaded the car. He didn't hug me, but he shook Alexandra's hand. "Drive safe." 2 words. Not forgiveness, but not rejection either. As we pulled away, I watched the house shrink in the rearview mirror and felt the strange mix of grief and relief settle in my chest. 6 years after the worst night of my life, I was leaving again, this time whole. The Chicago skyline rose ahead of us like a promise. Alexandra drove the last stretch while I stared out the window, replaying every conversation, every glance, every small victory, and every deeper wound. We had paid in family fractures and sleepless nights, but we had also gained something unbreakable. 2 weeks later, my mother called. Her voice sounded lighter. "The Bridge Club ladies asked about you. I told them you were happy. They didn't know what to say." She laughed, a small surprised sound. "I guess that's progress." My father texted a single photo of the swing set in the backyard with the caption, "Still here when you're ready." No mention of Alexandra, but the door wasn't slammed shut either. Jake sent a long email apologizing again and admitting he had been jealous of the courage he saw in me now. I read it aloud to Alexandra over dinner, and we toasted to unexpected gifts. Life settled into a new rhythm. Alexandra made partner at the firm, and I finally finished the novel I had been writing since college, the one about a girl who learned to love out loud. We hosted our first dinner party and invited friends who had become family. Yet every time the phone rang with a hometown area code, my heart still skipped. The price had been real. Some cousins stopped speaking. My brother needed 6 months before he could say Alexandra's name without awkwardness. And my mother still sometimes cried when she thought I couldn't hear. But every night when Alexandra reached for me across the bed, I remembered the girl who stood frozen on that graduation stage, and I knew I had become someone stronger. Someone who no longer needed their approval to breathe. On the 1-year anniversary of that reunion trip, we drove back for a quiet visit. The family gathering was smaller this time, just parents, brother, and a few aunts. My father grilled burgers the way he always had, and my mother set an extra place at the table without being asked. When Alexandra and I said goodbye on the porch, my mother hugged us both. "Come back soon," she whispered. "Both of you." In the car, Alexandra rested her head on my shoulder. "They're trying." I nodded. "And so are we." The road stretched ahead, and for the first time the rearview mirror showed only open sky behind us. Looking back, I still don't know if every choice was right. I only know the woman beside me was worth every scar. So tell me, was choosing love over tradition the brave thing to do, or did the cost prove it was selfish after all?